Whether you're tackling a solo flawless dungeon, Grandmaster Nightfalls, or Master Raid challenges, a powerful build can mean the difference between channeling your inner Kyle with the nearest drywall, or finally beating that Master Challenge. Well, after using this exact build to finally get my Master Witness challenge clear, I can confidently say this is one of the best builds I've ever created, even on the same tier as my last build, which so many of you have enjoyed. Now this build delivers both insane damage, exceptional survivability, and phenomenal team support. If you think I'm exaggerating, I've included a segment in the video where I test it in various DPS scenarios, so be sure to check that out. Now as always, for those of you who just prefer to plug and play, we'll have a mobile aids link below. But without further ado, let's dive into the details of this build. So today, we are going to be combining our Prismatic Warlock kit with a weapon that will allow us to shred through waves of adds and supercharge our Transcendence meter, that being Kvostov, and the exotic armor Speaker's Sight, create a build synergy that allows us to spam healing turret after healing turret and charge our Transcendence meter at a stupidly fast rate. But as always, the true strength of this build revolves around our abilities, aspects, fragments, and especially our artifact mods, as they will give us some of the best survivability, team support, and damage capabilities available in Destiny 2. So for any of you in the comments of my last Warlock video saying that you aren't a fan of Final Warning, I definitely encourage you to give this build a shot, especially with our brand new artifact mods that will take this build to a whole nother level. Now first up, let's quickly cover why Speaker's Sight. Now as I'm sure many of you already know, Speaker's Sight converts our healing nades into healing turrets that grant cure and restoration to nearby allies, and will periodically spawn orbs of power when healing allies. However, what many of you may not know is that Speaker's Sight grants light Transcendence energy whenever healing allies as well, making it a quick, easy, and super helpful way to charge our light Transcendence meter and support our teammates. Please consider subscribing if you didn't know that. And then of course for our grenade, we will be taking the healing grenade to create healing turrets. For our melee, we want Arcane Needle to apply the Unravel debuff, Healing Rift or Phoenix Dive for healing, and the Song of Flame super. So by now, most of you watching this video already know how busted Song of Flame is, with its 90% damage resistance and radiant, plus all the other benefits to nearby teammates, which includes the 30% damage resist to nearby teammates and a massive boost to their ability regen, as well as scorching rounds to kinetic and solar weapons. Now for our aspects, we first want to take Feed the Void. Honestly, if you're not running Feed the Void, you're selling. For any new players who may not be familiar, ability Final Blows will grant you Devour, and any Final Blow while Devour is active will refresh the Devour timer, grant you a full heal, and 15 to 40% grenade energy for every Final Blow while Devour is active. And honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if Bungie hits this with a slight nerf, as it really does just make Prismatic Warlock the easiest class to survive with, as Transcendence ability and Super Final Blows also proc Devour, so be sure to take advantage of this now. Now for our second aspect, we want to take Hellion. Now I know a lot of people love rocking the stasis turrets, but me personally, I just can't give up my little solar buddy. Now casting your class ability will spawn a solar buddy that lobs solar blobs at enemies, scorching them, and ultimately igniting them after about 4 hits. Now this is a great way to passively charge our Transcendence meter, and if you've noticed, we now have 2 sources feeding us light Transcendence energy, those being our solar buddy and our healing turrets. Now this is vitally important, and here's why. We all know Transcendence is based on dealing light and darkness damage, with kinetic weapons granting a reduced amount of progress to both meters. However, a lot of people don't know that once the meter is full, kinetic damage grants increased progress to the uncharged meter, which in our case is our darkness meter. This allows our exotic weapon, Kvostov, to really shine. Now Kvostov is the new exotic auto rifle from the final shape, and if you haven't completed the quest for it, I'd strongly encourage you to do so. As proof of how easy it makes ad clear, I've only started using it a few days ago at the time of recording this video, and already have over 10,000 defeats with it. Its exotic trait, the right choice, allows every 7th bullet to ricochet to nearby targets. However, its exotic perk, Eyes Up Guardian, allows collecting an orb of power to supercharge it, strengthening its next several ricochet shots to deal more damage and bounce between more targets. Now since we will constantly be safely proccing the Eyes Up Guardian perk, every ricochet shot will be able to ricochet up to 7 times and deal a whopping 252% increased damage. And the reason we will be able to constantly proc this is due to our final perk on Kvostov, Shoot to Loot, where simply shooting an orb of power or an ammo brick will collect it for us. Now this makes Kvostov an ad clear monster, and as you can see, it also allows us to charge our Transcendence meter at a ridiculously fast rate. Now our fragments will be vital to our Transcendence uptime and overall survivability, and speaking of survivability, our first fragment, Facet of Protection, is a vital piece of the build, as it grants 15% damage resist while near 3 or more combatants, with this effect being increased to approximately 32% while Transcendent, which you're going to find is virtually always. Next we take Facet of Purpose, which grants us an elemental buff on orb pickup based on the damage type of our super. And since we have the Song of Flame solar super, we gain 5 seconds of restoration times 1 on orb pickup, granting us 35 HP per second. Then we want Facet of Grace, which grants us additional Transcendence energy when dealing final blows with a kinetic weapon. This grants us 2% additional Transcendence energy on every kinetic final blow, which as you can imagine makes it a phenomenal pairing with Kvostov, as we will be absolutely supercharging our Transcendence meter while mowing down waves of enemies. Next up, we want Facet of Dawn, which grants Radiant for powered melee hits, and Radiant to you and nearby allies on powered melee final blows. Now Radiant will provide us with a nice 25% increase to weapon damage, but also grants us the ability to stun barrier champions, meaning we can now easily stun barriers and unstoppable champions with this build. And with this kit, we also have built-in overload stuns, but more on that later. Now for our final fragment, we take Facet of Dominance, which allows our Void Grenades to weaken and our Arc Grenades to jolt. Now right about now, I'm sure you're thinking, Nova, you absolute buffoon. You're using a healing grenade. Why would you take Facet of Dominance? Well, this all brings us to our Transcendence form, where we gained access to the best Prismatic Grenade ability in the game, Freezing Singularity, which sucks enemies in like a Vortex Grenade, and then freezes, suppresses, and shatters them, giving it the ability to stun both Overload champions with Suppress, and unstoppable champions with Shatter. Now importantly, since Freezing Singularity does void damage, we are able to apply the Weaken debuff with it thanks to Facet of Dominance. All the while we are gaining increased damage resist from Facet of Protection, and full health on any defeat after proc and Devour with an ability Final Blow, making us virtually unkillable in any level of content, even at Grandmaster difficulty. Now before we get into our artifact mods, I want to discuss our secondary weapon selection. Now with this build, I personally am running the Ikelos Sniper with Focused Fury and 4th times the charm. This thing has been putting in absolute work for damage thanks to the artifact mods, but I realize not everyone has it. With that in mind, on the left I'll put the mods for the sniper variation of the build, and on the right I'll put mods for the non-sniper variation of the build. Now this could be anything you want, but I recommend something that can be easily used in a DPS setting, as Kvostov will handle our ad clear with ease. Now for our sniper based setup, the artifact mods we are going to be rocking are as follows. We take Anti-Barrier Sniper for barrier stuns, and Overload Auto to allow our Kvostov to stun overloads. You also want to slot on authorized mods Charged Up and Elemental Charge for more armor charge. In our third column, we want to run Incendiary Rifle rounds and Sustained Fire. These will give us some nice buffs to both our auto rifle and our snipers. In the fourth column, we again have some perks to buff our sniper and auto rifle, those being Solar Fulmination and Targeting Autoloader. Radiant Orbs is also recommended for a nice 25% boost to weapon damage. And in our last column, we want to run both Transference and Sniper's Meditation. Now you'll notice 3 of these perks just rolled out with Act 3, those being Overload Autos, Sustained Fire, and Targeting Autoloader. Overload Auto obviously gives us anti-overload auto rifles, but Sustained Fire and Targeting Autoloader are going to take Kvostov to new levels of overpowered, as the Sustained Fire mod grants 37% damage resist just by dealing damage with our auto rifle, and Targeting Autoloader refills the mag and grants us a damage buff just by filling a meter. Now this only takes 2 final blows per stack and can be procced up to 5 times for a maximum of a 20% damage boost to auto rifle, essentially giving us the Rampage perk on Kvostov. Now for the non-sniper selection, all the mods would be exactly the same, except I would just replace Incendiary Rifle rounds with Elemental Siphon and Sniper's Meditation with Shield Crush. Now on screen now we have our mods. As you can see, we are primarily focused on generating orbs to feed our Kvostov and generating special ammo to feed our Ikelos Sniper. Now the gameplay loop for this build is very simple. Start by throwing your healing grenade, which will be converted to a healing turret thanks to Speaker's Sight. This will charge your light Transcendence meter when healing teammates, but it will also spawn an Orb of Power. Now this orb can be picked up to feed our Kvostov exotic perks, ramping up its ad clear capabilities severely. Slay out with Kvostov and watch your Transcendence meter fill up in a matter of seconds. Once you have it, pop Transcendence and continue to slay out, using your sniper and heavy weapon for damage phases and tankier targets. Now once your Transcendence meter runs out, typically you will have your Song of Flame super already ready to go, so go ahead and pop that for the 90% damage resist, the Radiant buff, as well as some solid damage potential with the super itself. Repeat this and absolutely destroy everything. This build is truly one of those builds that it doesn't matter whether you're running with a team or solo, whether it be GMs, master raids, or any other activity. As you can see, we not only offer great team support, but are able to put out solid damage no matter what scenario you may find yourself in. Now, if you like this build video and haven't seen my last one, I'd strongly encourage you to join the 150,000 others who have enjoyed it. And while you're at it, feel free to subscribe and stay up to date on all future build videos. Thank you and have a great day.